going out, like we had Haysville Wednesday, Thursday for energy leadership, and they did all of their assessments. There were 42 of their leadership.
Wow.
And then they're taking all 42 through the house. It's kind of cool. But then Friday was Hampton Harbor, Monday was Valley Center, and here I'm going out doing energy, and I'm like, oh.
I know. Sarah and I both went through it. It just, we coughed and coughed and coughed. You ready? I know. It's in your genes. I think.
Gotta turn it on first.
I think we did. It's green light.
Well, geez, special. Hello. Are these on?
Test. Test. Test.
Hello. Hello.
Test. Test. I think we're about ready to get started.
All right, we either going to have to get organized here, or I'm going to let Bill do the whistle.
We have some introductions. What? Craig Elliott's here, right? Did I see Craig earlier? Gary Seacrest. He just came in. Yeah. Is he new? New face. All right. You, in that first segment, you want him up in there?
Yeah, I'll
Let me put him up in here. Where do you want? Are you going to introduce him?
Yeah,
All right. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Welcome everybody to the Council of Superintendents. A few introductions and welcoming. I think Jamie Rumford, is this your first meeting with us? Okay, Jamie Rumford from Scott City, we welcome him. Coming all the way out from western Kansas. Was it raining out there today? Okay. We also have Craig Elliott from Wichita State University. You ready for him?
Yeah.
All right.
hold it. Oh, one other thing for all the people out in the field that are joining us virtually, would you please log on to the site and give us your district number so we know who's in attendance. All right. Good, Chief. Thank you.
Two quick things. Last month I was here and talked about the Kansas Induction and Mentoring Center that KASD had designated. The Kansas Induction and Mentoring Center that KSDE last summer designated Wichita State as the official center for mentor training. Pleased to report that there are 13 school districts. Mike Sanders, I think, is the smallest school district. Wichita is the largest. Newton, I think, is a part of that. The first session is going to be tomorrow, and I think there's going to be like 23 participants. So appreciate all the folks in South Central Kansas who are get involved in that. Sherry Goodman, who's the director of that center, asked me to let you know. I was putting my phone at home, but there's 20 other involved in that. Third November, I will give information those who haven't been involved in 20. Second thing that I want to talk about is the business license program for South State. Have a number of candidates on this program today. And really ask really don't meet 9 candidates this year. I Say what I saved all of these. Well, and if I were refrigerator.
Motion for adjournment?
We also have another guest, Gary Sechrist from KASB is here. Welcome to you. Any additional guests? Okay.
Gary, you can sit at one of the tables. I know you haven't paid dues yet, but you can still sit at it.
Good luck with that.
All right.
Okay, Mike.
All right, we got several updates we want to bring you up to speed on, and one of them we're going to start with Tamara, because Tamara has an appointment she has to get to, so we're going to move her up on the agenda.
Well, I was asked just to talk briefly about energy leadership, and many of you know we have invested in what we call coach-centric leadership for professionals in education, and it is changing cultures. I know it has impacted our culture tremendously, and it's all about increasing energy and engagement and motivation in what you do. It does teach some specific cognitive and affective skills to help people move from point A to point B, but we really believe it's a piece of the future for professional learning. Helping people recognize and become aware of how their energy is impacting them and those around them so that they take purposeful action to achieve the results they want. And when our energy or our motivation for something is low, it's so easy to kind of just sit back and not take action. And so I just wanted to share briefly that there are many different options. It's not just a one-shot deal. And on your table, all of you have a little, if you'll just grab one of those cards. I wanted to share the options that are available because I've asked Mike if I could just give it away as a gift to every single person. Not really, but we would, wouldn't we? If we could, we would give it away as a gift because that's what it is. It's a gift for increasing our own awareness and engagement in life, but also as a leader. You guys have so many stressors, and those around you have so many things that they're stressed about, and it does help with the motivation for the tasks that we are given. But the 7 days, that's the big program. That's the certification process. So when you go through those 7 days, you can become a certified core energy coach. You can actually start coaching other people and charge for it. That is, you'll notice we have 3 different options for that. One starting next week. The other option that I don't think people are aware of is you can just come to the first 3 days of those 7 days. And the cost of that is $14.95, but that's for 2 people. Because one person can bring a guest for free. So it's like $750. And those 3 days are so impactful. Now you don't get the certification, but you get tons of skills. How many of you have gone through, and if, I don't know, Kevin, Josh, yeah, will you just share just a little bit, if you don't mind, I'm putting you on the spot, about...
I don't mind sharing. I went through the full 7-day training and plus some others. And I felt it very rewarding just personally for me to change my thought process and how to deal with negative energy, positive energy. That's some language that I think has there. But I'll use it within my work. And my board's been very supportive to allow me to go out and also use this techniques, strategies with other administrators. And I did that even last week for the first time with them. And just for the 20, 30 minutes that we were able to talk through this program and help them with things in their work, an immense support system for them, and just the professional development, just have that one-on-one conversation with them to help them worked through their problems with some immense relief. They really appreciated that support. So for me, it was very rewarding to be able to do that for colleagues, but also for them, they're really helping them develop professionally.
I'll share a little bit. I know we had a chance Friday to have Cameron come into our district. Might get to those things in a minute, but as far as the 3-day piece, one of the biggest pieces is to look at some of the barriers. Anytime you talk about politics, those kind of things, you realize, and that came up, I think Dr. Hine was part of the session. I was there. That was one of his big questions. How do you shift that political conversation to be a little more productive? It's always, and the phrase they use is catabolic. There's always a conflict involved. So trying to shift some of those conversations to be anabolic to get productivity out of the thing. So some of it's a pretty big picture, big idea, but there's some specific strategies along the way. I got out of it personally to say, hey, here's some things you can at least try and work with people on, at least know where you're at on it. So if somebody does say something that's going to push your button, you know not to respond quickly and say something that's going to keep it in a situation something more negative, kind of policy.
I know Josh has shared that he's used several of the strategies, coaching strategies, with his Board of Education when they're split on some issues. And just having that common language and that common direction really does help move you forward so you don't get stuck in energy that's not at all. Another option, I'm going to have you talk for a minute. Oh, go ahead.
I think the 3-day training, and I think the biggest thing for me is when I did the assessment, I found out where I want to be in terms of my energy today, and then how I react to stress. And it's very discouraging to see how I react to stress. And it's, I've tried to focus on that. One of those things I have control over them. Because when I get under stress, I don't do well in terms of, it saps my energy. So I've been really trying to focus on that. So it's real off. We've been talking about, our board has been talking about our classified staff. And we just been having some struggles with our classified staff. We haven't spent enough time with them, in my opinion. I feel like it's draining energy. We have several pockets in our classified staff that just don't. They're down all the time, negative all the time. So we spent 2 half days with them. We spent a day a year, and they grumbled because they had to come in after school was out. I mean, it was like, you know how you start a meeting and you just know everybody's saying, and that's where they were at. But I just told them, you know, we need to get better, and we need to invest in you. And Cameron did a nice job, and we followed it up for years. So I think it was good for our classified staff. I think it's made a difference. The interesting piece is I've heard some of our staff say strategize. So what it's done is it puts some common language in our, when people are being negative, you don't have to say being negative, you simply strategize and get it. So it's different approach. But this has been good.
Thank you for sharing. I know several others have attended, and I know it's impacted you in a positive way, but I know we don't have time to share all of those, but that's the other option, is the entire 7 days for the certification, and then the 3 days. You can bring 2 for that one price at the bottom. But then on the back, we have 3 workshops a year, and our next one is January 27th, and they get an ELI, Energy Leadership Index assessment, and then they have it's a day workshop. And then the last opportunity, and it's really, we are always open to opportunities. That's what Striving for 5 is, looking for opportunities to make a difference. And that's bringing the workshop on site. And we have been to a lot of different districts. And I will tell you, the feedback we've received from staff is outstanding. It's almost like just this sense of, because I got into this, because I'm passionate for what we do for kids. And we're allowing all this external stuff bring us down, so we're not necessarily focused on kids. And what I hear after some of the workshops is, this is giving us hope. Like, thank you so much. Now I see so many opportunities to make a difference. And so we've gone to entire staff, certified staff, classified staff, leadership teams where they have them all take the assessment, and we show group results where their energy is. And then I'm really excited because I am going to go to your district and work with the student council. We talked, we don't have all the details worked out, but work with the student council, because this is also an opportunity for students. So we'll give them the Energy Leadership Index, do a group brief, and do leadership work for the day, because it's all about leadership, leading yourself and others to take action. And then we'll work through their English classes and work with all of their 7 through 12 students. So this becomes common language, not just with adults, but with students as well. So there's many different options. If you are interested, and yesterday, actually Monday, I went to a district and only worked with 3 different PLCs that were struggling, different grade levels. And all 3 of them said, this will make a difference with how we show up the next time. It's impactful. It's hard to share the impact it can have, but I hope that if you're interested or you have pockets that you really want to increase the energy and engagement in your district or with yourself, that you visit with me. Let's find a way to make that happen. Oh, and curriculum leaders. We meet monthly. I don't have the exact date with me, but we have a Facebook page. So if you have any, is there anyone that does have a curriculum leader, or you are a curriculum leader yourself that you're interested in attending? We do meet monthly, and it's free of charge. It just is a networking group. There's lots of learning that takes place, and the group really defines what the agenda is. So there is a Facebook page. It's Curriculum Leaders, ESSDACK Curriculum Leaders. So if you're interested, please just ask to join that, and we'll add you to that, and we would love to have you.
Okay, got some other quick updates we're going to share with you. Several things. Everybody get a chance to look at this as you came in. It's kind of obvious, blasting. When we take breaks and so forth, give a look at this. Lori put this together. We did take an emblem, mascot, and put it behind. That is not a Blue Jay, Steve. This is an Oriole for Augusta. It is not a Blue Jay. And Bob, this is not red. We tried to get orange, but we're working on it. It's not an eagle. So to cease all of the arguments, this is not a dragon. No. Well, okay. What we're going to do, we're going to print one of these for each of you with your mascot behind it, and we're going to give that to you as a gift from us to you, and hopefully you'll put this in your boardroom. We really believe that since the state has adopted this definition of where we should take education, that we have, for the first time, a very clear picture of where we ought to go, and it's exciting. We have the opportunity to change the way we deliver and really truly prepare kids, and so we hope we can put this in your boardrooms, and it's your choice, obviously, but we want you to have one of those. We've had some requests just to print some of these signs and laminate them and all that, and we can do that for you too. But maybe by October we'll have 60 of these ready to go. We got to find the frames though. Hobby Lobby thought that was interesting that we wanted 60 frames like that. But so we bought them all out. Now we got to find some other Hobby Lobbies. So anyway, or if that's offensive to you and you don't want one, just tell me and we won't print one for you. So, but we're going to give you that next month. And of all the meetings for John Black not to be at, when I wanted to say, John, Augusta, top of the alphabet, there you go, take it home. So, so you'll get one of those. A couple of things that we need to bring the group up to speed on. Facility. As you probably read in the newspapers, the mall has been purchased and possession has been delivered to a company by the name of Rockstep out of Houston, Texas. since they closed on the building. I've had 3 meetings with them already. It's no secret they want us to stay. It's no secret that we've bought another facility, and so there's all kinds of things going on. We'll meet again with them come October 1, but right now the train track is heading. Everything's in place that we continue to push toward a new facility, but we will also sit down and visit with these folks some more. There's a lot of ideas and projects that they've got to revitalize this mall. They've been pretty successful doing this in other communities, so we have to look at that. And so facilities has kind of taken a little bit of a great turn here. I do want to share an opportunity that has come our direction, and let me explain a little bit. And find it here. Where did I do it? We have an opportunity to work with the Laurel Company on an opportunity to bring some Chinese students over, and also for some of you to go to China if you want to. And some of you want to go and not come back. That can be arranged. But here's what's happened. A year ago, we started looking at ESSDACK becoming a J1 center where we could have students come in and go through this process and then get placed in schools. That hasn't happened. So we're kind of out of the picture right now. But Randy Liu, who Chinese gentleman who actually was educated here in the U.S., has talked to us, and he has a company, Laurel, Maryland. Oops, I misspelled Maryland. They've been doing this work for several years. Here's what they're looking for. Schools that will host J1 students from China. They will arrive here in late December. They will be sophomores, be families, run 10 students. They get 2 families, they send 2 over, that's like 2. Students will have all the stuff they need, host families, meals and housing. They also will have their U.S. health insurance. I don't know if it's from the exchange or not, but never mind. Students have definitely been screened. They go through an extensive screening process for English proficiency, etc. There's a lady by the name of Kelly. She's employed by Laurel. She would have to come out and interview the families. So that's the need, and we'll put all this together. I just got all this yesterday, and so I kind of hammered it out over the phone. But I'll put this together in a flyer, send it to all of you, and you can send it out to your building principals or families, or however you want to look at it. We're looking to help them by finding administrators who would help identify the families. Families would then say, yeah, we'll take a kiddo, and if we can come up with that, then Randy would like to have 4 or 5 administrators come over to China for a spring visit. They will pay for everything except your visa and passport. Those things, you probably already have a passport. You need a Chinese visa. School visits, sightseeing, and so forth. All that the administrators do is help identify host families. Kelly then follows up and screens the families. Timeline, here's the problem, very short. They want to bring these kiddos over in spring, which means late December, which means they need about 30 days to do all the screening, which means timeline's pretty short. So if you have anybody that's interested, or if you have a principal that wants to get involved in that, or if you want to, in exchange, they'll take you over to China. From there, I think they're on their own. So it's an opportunity. I'll be sending something out in email. Just want to plant the seeds. It will go through the Laurel Company, so I don't know what kind of stuff they have to do, but we're just conveying the message. Any quick questions on that? Just an opportunity that came about, and I thought we better share it with I know some of you like to bring cultural diversity and thoughts in to students. Yeah, they're a J1. They've been doing this for years. They're a J1. They're out of Maryland. I don't know how many years they've been doing it. I guess 7 years. So, yeah. Well, shoot me emails or anything like that if you have any questions, and I'll put this together and I can find out how long. So, SLA food management. Quickly, I sent out an email about interest. We had 13 districts express some interest in that. So, to move it forward, I talked to Brian Albertson, and he is looking at October 22nd on his calendar to tag on and have a lunch and learn after this meeting, which will be our October meeting. If it doesn't work out, then we'll have to set a separate meeting. We will record it and try to take care of getting all the information so that we can follow up with those that can't be there. But it seems like that's becoming something of great interest that people have on their plate to see if they can fix the food serving system. Insurance Consortium, I want to share with you a big picture overview of this because we've been started working on this late last May when EMC started dumping districts and started jacking up the prices. We kind of had a crisis where we said we could be without insurance. We tried to throw something together, and it just doesn't work. You really need time to figure out what people want and figure out the liabilities and all that kind of stuff. AESA, the National Service Center Group, has been working with a group out of Detroit, Consolidated Insurance, and the model that they put together is finally come in some kind of a pictorial. I want to share this with you so you get a feel for what it's going to look like, because we're going to bring this to you and let you, as districts, really have some options. The big picture, first of all, is going to look like this. And the reason for this is it's the only way to really work toward a consortium type of arrangement to get the best prices. Because you're buying individual products, and so what's going to happen is, as this thing is put together, you're going to see volume purchasing start coming into play. And so what's going to happen is there'll be multiple brokers. There's a website that's already been developed and it's been tested, and it crashed, and that was a good thing, because when I talked to Tom, I said we'd rather have it crash now than when all of you guys start hitting it. So now it's been fixed, and it'll be a website. You'll go through it, and it'll look like we'll have a AESA member benefits, and then over here there'll be a way to click on things and request quotes, and then automatically then will be put in touch with one of these brokers, and then you will receive a quote. Now, what kind of insurances are they offering? And they've got this finally put together. If I can find my page. This is the types, from small, these are the types of insurance they're proposing. They've got companies and agents put together to start bringing this to you. And these are just some of the types of companies they'll be working with to package this. Here's types of insurance that will be available. And then they started to put together risk management services. So what they're really trying to do is package together a way to take some of that pain off of your table and get this put together to where we can start forcing some volume purchasing leverage. So you got workman comp all the way down through whatever environmental liability is. Maybe it's mold. Inland marine, some people have asked about that. Air and emissions. Some of these things are pilot, like 3D premises mapping. For those that need a little further, they'll come in and take a 3D picture of everything in your district. It helps with safety issues and claims and that sort of thing. So you're going to see this rolled out. It'll be a website. we'll be trying to leverage the volume side of it, and it'll look like you'll literally customize what you want versus it's almost a step in trying to eliminate the middleman, where it's directly customized for what you're looking for. So that's where this is headed. They're going to roll this out late November, 1st of December at our national meeting. Tom Maxey, the guy that's put all this together, he and I are working directly because we were the first ones that really started pushing them to get it ready. And that's why my email went out to all of you saying, when's your renewal date? For those that have that January 1, that there was some with October. I don't see it being ready by then, but this is getting very close. But I want to keep you up to speed on that because it's just another option that's out there. I know Gary's here. He has they work with many of you are part of that, MC and so forth. Okay? Bill?
So I'm not sure I understand the concept yet. Currently, we have EMC.
Right.
And what that gives us are most of these in one broad form kind of policy that we just say, this is what we want, here's the equipment we have, this is the facility we have, et cetera, et cetera. And we pay one premium to EMC. We have an agent, sure, agent we work. How's this going to work? Are we going to have to point and click to sell an inland marine? It's going to be this company. I want fiduciary liability to be this company. What's going to happen? Because this doesn't look like a one-stop shopping to me.
Well,
Getting a whole bunch of variety. That's true or not?
Right. You're going to have a lot of variety, and the way I understood it when we were talking with Tom is, let's say you pick Inland Marine and you click on that. We already know from his work that I got to get on the right line, that Alliance has Inland Marine available. There may be some other companies that then start bidding on that. So you get some competition bidding going on, much like we do with our 125
So
benefits.
who's the agent?
It'll be Consolidated Insurance out of Detroit will be the umbrella.
So when we have something happen, we make, like what you're talking about, we make one call.
Right.
No matter what.
Right.
We have one call. As we do that.
Mike?
Right now, I call Valley Center and get some kind of personal help. That won't be the case.
According to Tom and the discussion we had, there will be local agents that they will be working through as brokers. You know, because some of these guys might be located right down the street, you know, that actually work directly with you. So, the one point that I am not clear on yet is how we're going to be able to see, because this is where you get the volume benefits. How do you see all of you member districts under the umbrella of ESSDACK, and ESSDACK's one customer versus 60 million? Because once you get, see, that's where we get the volume benefits with the 403B and our 125, because we can leverage that then against the vendor, not in that way. A good way to do it. But that's what we have to figure out how to put together and make sure this occurs, because I don't think you're going to get very much of a savings if you're seen as Nickerson as the individual district, because I mean, whether you're with KSB, MC, these guys are all playing in the same game. It has to come down as a way to figure out how to leverage. So, and that's why they're looking at AESAS nationally. How do they build a national facility for schools? That's really what the goal is. So, anyway, I wanted to give you an update on what I know, so we're all on the same page. It's not completely finished yet, but need a little bit of background on why I keep asking insurance questions. So we're trying to put this together for you. Okay, so that's a little bit on insurance. ACT update. Last meeting, we had some requests to look at trying to put together a consortium for the Aspire, and If I recall, there was about 8 or 9 hands that went up. We've continued to look into that. We've called ACT, and they've never put together a consortium volume purchasing type of arrangement for Aspire. So all of a sudden here, we've got to put a plan together, send it up there, and see if their people will approve it. They're open to it because they've actually done that with work keys, and we're in that game. So to just bring you up to speed, again, it's in the works. We've got a lot of irons in the fire where we're trying to leverage things for you guys. But that's one that was brought up, and I just want to make sure you know that we're still working on it. Some of this stuff takes a little time to get up the corporate ladder, so it's like a university. Never mind. So, okay. Those are quick updates. Anything on those that I can answer? Bill? Okay. Well, that's also the day that we have a meeting scheduled here, so we probably should, executive council would need to talk about that. We don't want to have that kind of a conflict. I missed that. Sorry, thank you. Okay. In the cyber world. October 22nd, our next SUPS Council meeting, and also the day we tentatively scheduled for SLA food management information. It conflicts with a statewide meeting with KSB. And so we need to look at that and maybe do some rescheduling. So, okay, we'll get that out after the exec council meeting. Steve, you got some things?
Cody Heitzmith's daughter goes into surgery in 20 minutes. She blew out her knee the other day. So I'm standing in for Cody this morning. Just a couple of reminders. Chromebook Google Mini Conference, October 17th. Big turnout for that. Great opportunity. Many of you are looking at either Google Apps or Chromebooks or both, and that'll be a great opportunity to get people here and learn about that. Ginger Tech Integration Group has been going for multiple years now, large group, but not everybody knows about it. You want to take 1 second and tell them about it?
Sure. Technology Integration Group is a group of teachers who are both techie and regular classroom teachers who we want to have integrating more technology. It's multiple meetings. It's like a PLC. We come in. They've voted up topics they want to learn about. We bring in guest speakers. And then it's a lot of hands-on play. We do have some districts who are sending, when I say play, I mean play learning. We know that, right? And some districts are deciding they're buying their regular tech integration specialist a seat and then 2 extra seats. And then that person is bringing in regular classroom teachers each time. And so those teachers, what they're finding in that district is that those teachers who come in are taking ideas back and using them. So it's not just one person saying, hey, you should integrate tech more. It's now other teachers, just normal people who are doing this stuff. So that's it.
And that's the Tech Integration Group. Many of you send people also to the Nerds Group, and that's an affectionate term around here. But those guys, I mean, that group just grows bigger and bigger. If you have a tech person that's not attending that, there are more problems. It's completely a problem-solving day. It's discussion, problem-solving, PLC for your tech people. So that's also available. Curriculum leaders, Tamara already talked about that. The work key certification, Amy is the contact on that. If you need more information, we just want to remind you, the work keys, the work ready certificate, that stuff is available through us now. If you're interested in that, Cleela, go ahead.
I just wanted to stick in real quick, just a reminder to superintendents, this works as a end-of-pathway assessment for several of the pathways at this time.
Yeah, so if you need that, Amy's a contact, you can go through me or Mike, any of us, we'd be glad to do that. A couple of things on engineering by design. I just had Renee go around and pass out a sheet for you. We're doing a little bits day. And the little bits are the electronic kits with the magnets that clip together. And these are the 3 different kits that we have. I want to make you aware of this. You know, this is one of those things that's pretty new for us, for us in education, and especially at the elementary level. This workshop would be for any level, anybody that wants to start learning about it. There is a material fee for it. Every teacher that attends will take a kit home. So literally they can go back to their classroom and start having kids do stuff. On the back side of that sheet is the price list. This is the stuff that's available. This is kind of one of those centers things, or an easy way to start dipping your toe in the engineering kind of stuff with your young kids or older kids. Katie back there, she's still working on that Mars rover. She said she had it working, but we didn't witness it, so we're going to make her do it again. This stuff was developed at MIT. It is cool stuff. You've played with it a little bit in here, and most of you know Jerry Butler, and it is guaranteed to be kind of a nerdy day with Jerry doing it, but it's all hands-on learning by doing. This is not theory stuff. This is your teachers learning how to use those kits, make stuff, and learn a lot of science and math and technology in the process. So I hope that you can get people to that workshop. The second thing that we're doing, that we're working on to kind of tune you up, this is the chassis of a drone that we printed on our 3D printer. We are working to put together a kit of motors, propellers, and all that stuff to build drones. And to let you start thinking about all this stuff, we are working to figure out how, at the lowest cost possible, to create a day for people that then want to, it's a step above the little bits. We're getting more nerdy now. This is pretty good engineering stuff. We're going to schedule a day that your people that are interested can come and literally build a drone from scratch. And those of you that have bought a 3D printer, we have the plans for this. And we're figuring out that, Katie helped me, but I think it's going to be in the $300 range to build this. A little higher, but to buy it, if you went and bought one, would be in the $700 range. So, that's the kind of stuff we're trying to figure out, and you're going to have some kids and some adults that want to get into this stuff. So we're working on how to get there for you. Yeah, Mike. Well, the model that we have out there that you've seen has been discontinued. There are still some available. They're all gone. Okay. I was going to say, we were down to under 10, I think, yesterday, trying to round them up for people wanting to buy. So the new model will cost $2,800 for it. And it's a better printer. I mean, they're getting better rapidly, but they're about $2,800. We were trying to round them up yesterday, the version that's out of date, and the warehouses just didn't have any more. They were selling them fast yesterday. Mike, does that help you?
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know, Steve, did you guys bought a new one? And you bought the updated version? Yeah. Yeah, you can print bigger stuff on it. And like I said, this was a free plan for this that we printed, and then we're buying all the motors and stuff. And the bracket is actually to put your iPhone on there so you could have FaceTime and go around and talk to people. We're starting to talk some nerdy stuff now. But that's where we're going with the engineering stuff. Okay. Cleela, quickly, we have some training set up for engineering by design. By the way, I got to tell you, Josh, Monday, they did a full staff development day, and all of their teachers did an engineering by design activity. And the teachers of the little kids did one, I think was designed for third graders.
Yeah, it's based on a pre-K too, like a first or second grade book.
So the teachers did an age appropriate for the kids they teach. They had 3 different competitions and a learning by doing experience. We did lots of debriefing on the cognitive processes. It was a great staff development day. The teachers were really into it. Josh did a session on the energy levels, and even the high school teachers were high energy and positive about it. That doesn't always happen, in case you hadn't noticed. Cleela, some dates coming up on engineering by design.
Well, I was going to say, my second cadre of Foundations of Technology, and if you remember, that's the first class in the Engineering Applied Mathematics pathway. Anyway, it will start next Monday again.
Do you have openings in that?
I can put some in. If I put additional teachers in it, I can't get you access to the portal till January 1, but I can get you a trainer login so they can still use all the hands-on stuff as we do it. And I want to thank you so much for giving me your teachers during the 3rd grade training as well as the training we've had the last 2 days. They have been absolutely wonderful to work with, very engaged. I wish Glenn Supus was here because I could tell him he had a math teacher here that was just absolutely enthused. She's already saying, because I got the national people to bring the national training the first 2 weeks of June, and then I'm going to repeat the technological design the last week of June of 2015. So, I mean, we're working way ahead on some things, but what I'm trying to say is, she already was saying, I definitely want to make sure I'm in that geometry one because I want to do this, of bringing the geometry together with those hands-on things.
And what we're trying to do is match those courses so you can get into those pathways, and then kids taking those, you get the funding for them.
Right.
So we're trying to plan ahead. Cleela will be putting out information on that, but next summer there will be 2 sessions on, what's the course again, Cleela?
Technological design. The first week of June, I'm going to take primarily districts that are a long ways away from here with the national trainers, and we'll take 30 then. And then the last week of June, that'll be for anybody, technological design for geometry.
Yeah.
And we brought the standards together, and just so you know, Jay Scott at the State Department and I worked out a hybrid course policy, and I'm going to talk more about this next month. But anyway, where you can draw the funding because you'll enroll the kids in the CTE course in the fall, and because they've met the requirements of both the CTE course and the geometry course, they will get the geometry credit in the spring.
Yeah, now, that's huge because they're in a CTE course, you get the funding, but it also is an application of geometry. Those kids that go through that will get 2 credits. They'll get a CTE credit and a geometry credit, and you'll get the funding for it.
And Blake Flanders and I've also got it worked out on Board of Regents level.
So,
and there's no problem with NCAA either.
Yeah,
NCAA.
so we're working through all those hurdles so that your kids are starting to get those experiences where they're real-world experiences, they're getting credit for both, and you're getting the funding for it. That's a win-win for everybody on that. So Cleela will keep us up to date on that. Veneer Hands-On Physics is coming up in February, 3rd and 4th. If you haven't had people do that, Cleela, quickly.
I got 1 of 3 training grants across the whole country. I will be bringing Veneer Hands-On Physics in 1st, 3rd, and 4th of February, and then they have authorized me with another physics teacher to repeat that training, so we can finally bring that hands-on application to the physics standings. I am so excited about that.
Yeah, we're really working hard to answer that question, when are we going to use this, that our kids ask. So, last thing, Jim Minns.
Touch base with you about what we talked about at our first quarterly meeting of the crisis intervention teams. First of all, we had 30 new people trained to be on teams that can go out into districts. And then we had a group of about 65 from our districts for our quarterly meeting, and a gentleman was here that introduced them to the software Crisis Go for their smartphones. And it's something that I think is going to catch on. It's something I've never seen before, and I've seen a lot of different ones for phones. This is totally interactive. You don't have to have anything else but your phone. It has maps, it has phone numbers. All you have to do is click on. You can use it as a walkie-talkie back and forth with people in your building. All sorts of things that are done. If you didn't have a representative here last Thursday, you can go to crisisgo.com and you can go through it. Mike, what'd you think of it?
Well, I'd have to really investigate it more. I should have brought my tech first.
Uh-huh.
That's where I get that.
I've called 2 districts that have it. I would say, fortunately, they haven't had a crisis to use it yet, but they've had practices and drills, and they say it works just like he says it works. So we'll take a look at that. I would encourage you, if you're at all interested, to take a good look at it, call some references, have him come out to your district. You will get a discount if you're an ESSDACK school district. So that's something. The least that you will spend for the smallest district would be $1,150. It's based on a base price, and I can send that all to you by email. I just got it yesterday. I'll send it to every superintendent so you'll have an idea what it is. And then it's so much per student, and it interfaces with your student information system. Just every student information system that's used in Kansas, like Skyward or something like that. What do most of you have? Yeah. Or any of the others. They've done some research. Power School it interfaces with. So give that a look. Our next meeting is the 13th of November. Jerry Tenbrink will be here. He's a replacement for Bob Hull at the Kansas Safe and Prepared Schools. Bob Hull took a position with a college as Dean of Education, so he's no longer with them. But Jerry Tenbrink's been with him every step of the way. And they'll be here the 13th of November to talk about what's new as far as their front is concerned. Last thing I want to talk to you about is our principal study group, leadership study group, had our first meeting the other day, last Wednesday, and we have 7 in the group right now. We'd like it to be a little larger, but 7 was a good number, good discussion. And what we're doing is we're starting on the cognitive processes by Dr. Shank, and we also use the energy leadership model that Tamara teaches, and we touch on that every time. And what we want to do is take the people that are in our group and have them start working on some real problems in their building and then coming back and talking about it when they come back to our group every month. Also, Steve and I are thinking about taking some principals meetings out in regional areas, not necessarily what we're doing in the leadership group, but just sitting down with principals, talking with them about their needs, what they might want. And if you're willing to host a meeting out in your area of area principals, we will do that, and it'll probably be once a quarter. But what we'd like to do is get together with the principals a little bit more often. And like I said, Steve and I are tag teaming that. And once I give the ring to Steve, I have a tough time getting back in. So I take every opportunity I can. No, it's a good, very, very good group, and I appreciate you letting your principals come. Well, by the way, the principals leadership group, we will adjust our dates to meet the needs of our principals. We've already adjusted the next meeting date from the 15th to the 14th of October. So, and the people that are in it already know that, but if you had, for some reason, such as Department of Education's Superintendents Council met on some of those dates and you didn't want to have your principal out, you have that availability now because we're willing to change the dates as necessary. Steve, thank you.
I have nothing to say.
Write that down. All right, we are going to take about a 5 or 6 minute break, refresh coffees, bladder. The math team is going to set up, and when you come back, there's a reason that we have the tables numbered, and there's only 4 chairs at the table. So, Mike, sir, you get to join table 2, and we'll go from there. Okay, so 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll be back to it. All right. You're going to love this.
Math is my worst subject, so I think it was Rick's best subject, so he's
good job about it.
Yeah.
You know, wait a minute. It's all right when you look at it. I spent under, but that's a big deal.
No,
Yeah.
the only thing I was good at.
I spent under the meeting. So therefore, I was really there.
I find it.
Stand up.
I listened for it.
They're going after everything.
Did you know it?
So you want me to sing?
No, no. There, we do have some.
But the stuff that's up there now is not. Yeah, we'll get rid of all well, a lot of it. Right? I mean, I don't like it.
Yeah, we were down. We had one.
No, it would be ugly. Renee's crazy.
No, go green. Can you not see it?
It won't go green. It'll go.
15 seconds just to
Well,
wait for his birthday.
This won't work. Did you not ever use your mic today? Dead. That one's dead. And are these completely down? Mine's green. But they're not up. So you're going to turn us up? Are we down right now? I'm green. That's what
I tried to see. We're going to try to give some of you your sign today, but we'll get the rest of them out to you, or next month we'll have them.
Good morning. We are glad to be here today. I feel kind of like the new math consultant at ESSDACK because it's been so incredibly long since I've been in front of this group. I see new faces for me. So I'm Renee Smith, and I've been here for 8 years, believe it or not. And Tammy and I are going to. And today, what we're going to do with you, today, no, we don't do math to people. What we're going to have you experience today is something that we've been working on for the last year. And we've had 4 workshops since April, and over 100 teachers have attended, and we are thrilled by that. I will tell you that when they come to our Math Workstations workshop, we've actually had to now use 2 rooms, one as our classroom, and this room is completely full of math workstations that they get to experience during the day. At the end of the day, as part of the materials fee that your districts have paid, if you have sent teachers to that, they get to choose the math stations that they believe will work best in their classrooms to take home with them. So it's been a great time. We've had a great time with it, and teachers have been giving us lots of good feedback on those days.
They have. Don't hate us because we're beautiful.
Yeah.
Because we're about to potentially take you out of your comfort zone of where you would like to be right now, and get you moving and doing a few things. So we are going to do a little model, and then we're going to do some debriefing about cognitive processes. We may need to do an energy check. We'll check that out at the end of that time. And we're going to experience some math stations for just a few minutes here before we do some debriefing and talking about hopefully some of the things you're having the opportunity to see in classrooms, and we're really targeting right now K-6, but hopefully some of the things that you and your principals are getting to see.
Does everybody have a writing utensil? Okay, you'll all need one. Okay, so what we're going to ask you to do is on your table there is a folder. On top of the folder there should be at least 2 sets of directions. So if there are 4 of you seated together, you and your shoulder partner can read one set of directions while the other people can read their own set of directions. There is also a baggie with cards, and at different tables it tells you to do different things with those cards, so I won't try to explain. It's on your direction sheets. You also have a piece of paper with what we call an accountability sheet inside the folder, and each one of you will need one of those to complete the activity.
You have to share with your shoulder partner, Dr. Cook.
Yes, please share.
He doesn't get his own set.
Somebody left. They didn't want to
Somebody
be in on
left.
the math.
So what we're going to do is we're
Dr.
going to
Wyckoff could
set the
play.
timer. We're
You wanna
only
play?
going to give you
You want to play?
a short amount of time here, but we're going to set the timer. Please read your directions, follow them. Each of you need a student accountability sheet out of the folder. Those will be yours to keep. And we'll go ahead and let you get started, and then we'll pause you with some directions.
Oh. Oh.
You made a mistake.
What in the world?
You're right. You can't.
Enter the chart below.
I think the card was out of the.
Oh. It's Tammy's mistake. It's totally hers. How would you know that? How could you prove that? How would you prove that? You gotta draw a picture too. You have to draw a picture. Right there. Represent your thinking pictorially. Yes. Rule breaker. Oh, unlucky. Wait a minute. Okay, Tam, we didn't put them at the same tables as part of the problem. We didn't put the cards at the same tables. Something isn't right here. Oh, this is so not right. We so messed up, and math people never mess up. Ever. That's okay. We'll fix it after this rotation. It'll be fine. It's okay. Well, we're going to fix it after this. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, no, this isn't right. No wonder you can't do yours correctly, gentlemen. It's our mistake, your fault. Oh, wow, this really got messed up. We are not very smart. What's that? After this, are those two other tables correct?
These two are correct.
So it's these two that got messed up. Because these guys have relational thinking cards and integer. Switch them. They just got mixed up. It's okay. They're not confused. They're just doing what they think they're supposed to be doing. It's okay. When's the timer going on? Yeah, it's us. We messed up. Math people don't.
Two folders down in the wrong place.
So no wonder that you get extra points because you did something. Yeah. So did these make a lick of sense considering what we're asking you to do?
Would please forgive us.
Yeah, I know.
So just do it really quick.
I know. There went our chance to get hired anywhere. My Heidi, I know. I'm gonna be in. I'll switch while you talk. Yeah, I need to talk to you about that.
Okay, if I may press pause, please.
You're gonna have to talk louder.
If I may press pause, please.
Okay, I'm going to use my middle school teacher voice because she's very quiet and being very polite, but I'm not that way. So we're going to ask you to pause, stop what you're doing, right where you are, put the cards back in the baggie, take your sheet, leave the direction sheet, take your sheet that you wrote on with you, and ones will rotate to table 2, 2s will go to 3, 3s to 4, and 4s back to 1.
And stay on this side of the room and stay on that side of the room. We're going to ask you to move for just a couple of times here. So
leave the directions and the baggies. Take your sheet. Okay. What are you moving?
All you're moving is the cards.
Okay. Okay.
When we go to.
Two.
Okay, hold on.
Yes,
You were
thank
there, Deb, going.
Man, we messed up.
That's all right. Don't.
You should have been doing
don't-
those. But those stay here. Thank you. There we go.
guys are twos,
Perfect.
going that way.
Ones go to 2, 2s go to 3.
Stay on your half of the room. 4s go to 1.
Perfect.
Thank
You
you.
are good. You listen to the direction. Yeah. What you didn't finish is homework. No. Well, I know. It was her fault. It's her fault. You better go explain that. Table 1.
So table 4 back here. Who are my guys back here? Gentlemen back here.
Up here.
You're coming up here. 4s go to 1.
There we go.
You stay with your same group. Come
Stay
on.
with your same
Come on,
group.
Mr. Sanders. Bring these guys along.
You're stuck with them forever. You sat by them, you're stuck with them.
All right. So again, take out your directions. Take out your directions and read and proceed.
Okay. Time to start again. Read your directions and start on the next sheet with the next set of cards. Okay, we straighten it out.
Pass out a sheet out of your blue folder there. Everybody gets one of those.
A new sheet?
A new sheet. Keep that one. That's your homework, remember?
Student 2 evaluates the region consensus.
You need one of these.
All right, here we go.
How many of you feel like you think mathematically? The business students, the ones that enjoy that quite well.
Sorry, the other cards switched, so it's different cards, but same thought process.
Darn. Really stinks that we messed up. Uh-huh.
Oh, represent your thinking pictorially. How did you get -12? Mr.
And did you get a new sheet for it? Are you like the fast guy? Okay, but now you gotta show me how you would know that pictorially. You gotta draw me a picture. Oh yeah, you gotta do that. I need here, please show me how you do that. I know I'm mean. I am a mean math person. What was your card? What was your card? Oh man, it's 8, a positive 8, and a negative 5.
So I've got 8.
They don't have numbers. That was Tammy's mistake too. Totally Tammy's mistake.
We've got a -5. Well,
Can we show them all positive? Are those all positive?
oh well.
Okay, so now if we want, how many? -5?
Yeah.
So now how many are left?
3.
Beautiful. That's your pictorial. See how easy that is? That was easy. That was easy.
They weren't getting into this stuff a year ago when we started.
Did she make you show a picture? Yeah. Okay. I know it. I know it. Amen. Amen. We're going to talk about all of that. You're my plant in the audience. You're going to bring that up, right? Okay. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Perfect. Perfect. Although there's a lot of 16. Give me one of the easy ones. The hue. Okay. There you go. Well, yeah, because they're all negative.
Well, true.
So Small numbers. This is about your smallest number combination right there. You'd have to have 14 positives out there. So 5 sets of them are going to cancel out, which obvious. There you go, perfect. A simpler problem proves it to me. Absolutely.
All right, if you would please pause.
Listen to her. Do you need my middle school teacher? Hello, hello, hello.
My mic doesn't work.
Mine does. We're on pause again because she's going to make you move again. So guess what?
So clean up your mess, please. Put your cards back in the baggie. Leave the instructions. Take your accountability sheets with you and rotate one more time, please. Please clean up before you go.
Twos go to 3, threes go to 4. Same drill as last time.
Debrief.
Yeah, follow the crowd. Two. Are we straining his brain? Come on, Bill. You can do it.
He's got the directions there. These directions are a little different.
Yeah. And did you read that last set of directions about representing pictorially? Oh my, oh my. Have you guys ever used these? Have you ever used these for these kind of problems?
The problem is the card number on this one.
So like on this one, I'd have 8 negatives. I'd have 8 negatives.
Flip them over for the 2 cards.
Uh-huh. So that we can see what the true answer would be, because these would cancel each other out.
Yes.
I mean, well, actually, what we would have kids probably do is this. Put down the 2 positives, and now those cancel out. And leave that. Did you guys see that?
You're exactly right.
Oh, it's just, it's way cool. It's way cool.
And actually taking, sorry.
I'll go over here and bug these guys now. Did you guys see this last set of directions about up here, represent your thinking pictorially? Have you ever used these?
No.
For integers?
No.
So I'm going to do a simpler problem than on your card.
Okay.
Like, let's say it's positive 4. So those are positive. Oh no, those are negative. We all know that being in the red is not a good thing. Okay, so those are all positive, and then let's say we're going to add a -2 to it. So there's my -2. Well, two negatives and 2 positives basically zero each other out, and they're gone, and so now we're left with the 2. There you go. So that's what we would be asking kids to do here. Well, I mean, a lot of kids start here and then eventually change it to a picture form.
Okay, so like on this one, without actually going 4 times 9, and without actually over here going 4 times 8 plus 4, can you look at the 2 sides of the equation
and know if it's true or false?
And tell if it's true or false and why?
Yes, without multiplying.
them.
I bet you could if you really stop and pause and think.
Yes.
I bet you can.
Okay, so here you have 4 groups. Okay. And here you have 4 I've got 4 groups on both sides.
But are they the same groups?
And even when you add those 4 in, I'm still not going to get there. That's why. So where's yours, Josh?
How are we doing over here? Cool. I know, and especially when we're asking you not to compute. Because doesn't it say somewhere on your directions without a computation? I know you can, but if you had to explain it without computation. I know, but okay, so right, so correct. So how many Y's do we have on this side? Wait, whoa. 4 Y's plus 1 Y is 3 Y's? Oh, thank you. Okay, gotcha. Okay. So are they the same? So you didn't have to find out really what Y was equal, did you? Perfect. That's relational thinking. Did you listen to those guys? Let me see what you guys had over here. Okay, so let me see yours. Let's do this one.
They're both true.
They're both true?
We were taught
Okay. Half of that and twice that.
Do the rules.
Okay.
Who cares what the rules mean, but do them.
Okay.
All right, if you would please pause,
She's making us
clean
stop.
up your table, and rotate the last.
No,
Wait.
No, we don't rotate to the fourth yet. Why? Because the fourth one is at the end. Really good. It's stand up.
We're not rotating?
No.
Why are we not rotating?
Trust me.
We haven't been to the last table.
I know, but they're going to do the last table as though it's free to stand up at the end when you're done.
Take direction.
Okay. Well, we're ready to debrief. We're ready to do.
Okay, if you would please pause. Sorry, got a new note from my neighbor. You don't have to stand up. You just have to pause.
You just have to pause. And you can still see it. There you go. Perfect. It's easy. That was easy. So, you've done 3 of the 4 stations. And we didn't give you a lot of pre-teaching, and we didn't read you the directions because you all know how to read. So depending on what grade level of, okay, we're assuming you know how to read. Positive presupposition there that you all know how to read. So depending on what grade level of students we're working with, this might look a lot different. Obviously, the 3 stations you've been to weren't at the same grade level, the activities. Would you agree with that? I mean, we put out a variety of different topics and different cards so that you would experience and see that we're ranging from, well, I don't think we put out anything as easy as our kindergarten cards, but we're going clear up through the beginnings of...
2nd through 8th.
Yeah, basically we put out 2nd through 8th grade here today so that you can see that there's quite a variety. But with our younger children, obviously we're going to do a whole lot more to get them ready to go into stations. But what we would like for you to talk about at your table briefly is, what did you experience? What was good about it? What wasn't so good about it? Just talk about what happened. What did you experience? Talk at your table. Go right ahead. Will come back to do the fourth table at their own pace.
Nobody ever told me that.
Well, it's in the slides. It's in the slides. Basically on time. And so I'd say when you've done half the sheet, stand up to show the difference in the timings. You wanna chart? I like it better when you chart. Okay, you talk. I don't like red. I don't like red.
Okay, so let's come back together. So what things did you discuss at your table for Renee to chart?
What did you discuss? We're just gonna.
Why was the justification difficult?
You know that doesn't wash with me, right? Okay. It did. It didn't.
We went back to how we were taught math.
So how were we taught math? Very rote procedures.
Focus on the end result of the right hand. Where's the right hand? Not the process.
I can. We've talked about collaboration, that justification of answers is difficult. We've been taught rote procedures and computation, and we're always focused on the right answer rather than the process. I need to put that. Anything else? Well, you've hit some of our main points here. How about that timer? Did everybody finish everything they were supposed to do, or did we force you to move too soon? What happens when we force you to move? You cried? No. Little kids might cry. So when we forced you to move, what we like to say and what we've seen happen over and over when we've seen this process in classrooms, because that is one of the parts of Tammy's and my jobs that we truly love is getting back into classrooms, is that when we saw this process timed, like we forced you to do it, it shuts down kids' thinking.
And what about my couple of Speedy Gonzaleses at the tables? Was there any table that you actually finished all the problems at? Okay. There was a couple there, and so then what did you do?
Okay. So the other thing that happens is when we're on a timer is we
have our problem children.
We have problem children that want to be in trouble because they're done. They're waiting for the timer to go off. It's Pavlovian. It truly is Pavlovian when you're in a classroom and see this happen. They actually are anticipating the timer. They've shut down before the timer. A lot of kids. It's very interesting to watch.
What was the other?
Oh.
We're going to share, but I have a plant in the audience.
Oh.
What was the other annoying thing?
What was the other annoying thing?
Because remember I said remember that when we debrief.
He's already forgotten.
Hint,
it's not
hint.
a sign of age, I promise.
It's not. No, he just said, wait, I got to get cleaned up. And I interrupted his thinking, and then I made him clean it all up and because sometimes we see this, I mean literally put everything back together and perfect before you move to the next table. Now, Renee and I didn't overstress that we wanted, we didn't want it back in the center.
Cubes, there are teachers that want them in stacks of 10.
Right.
Well, of course, it's somebody else's fault.
Is that level 2, Tamara, or 1?
Right down there.
He was a victim from us because we made him clean, but he's blaming someone else.
So you've been both 1 and 2. It's okay. It's okay.
But that's another point. Then, every time before we can rotate to the next station, had you been 7-year-olds, we would have done that very orderly, made you get 100% cleaned, everything back in the center, and moved you to the next spot. So one of the things Renee and I are talking about in our workstations is something a little different.
Oh,
Keep going.
we
Keep
forgot that.
going.
We'll just skip over that and come back. So we, first of all, before we ever started creating this, and we actually went to classrooms and saw this in action. And so we sat down and talked and read and did some research, but we also went back to those teachers, and quite frankly, what I did was I said, ladies, because they were all ladies at that time, how many minutes do you have for this small group math time? And when you're doing your centers or stations? And they told me about 30 minutes. And I said, so in that time, how many times does the timer go off? And they said 3. I said, so kids have maximum time of 10 minutes per station, and that includes your rotation time and your cleanup time before they get to the next one. And they said, yes, that's correct. And I said, okay, so from the time the timer goes off till the time they are actively engaged in the next station, give me a rough estimate. And they told me, oh, 2, 3, 4 minutes. I said, okay, so in my 30-minute period, I've lost between 9 and 12 minutes of actively engaged in learning math. And they're kind of going, shaking their heads. Yep, you're right, Renee. I said, so over a week's period, let's do the math, because you know I'm all about doing the math. How much time have we lost? And they did the calculations. And I said, that's 1 week. How many weeks are we in school? I said, there's got to be a better way than that. And so the first thing we talked about was the timer and getting them into a different process. But here were all the reasons that we think station work and small group time is really important. We have the ability within stations to do a whole lot of differentiation. Kids can be, I mean, there's lots of different ways to do that, but the topics can be differentiated. We can have children actively engaged in things that maybe we haven't even covered this year. We may be pre-teaching. We may be doing things that they're actively engaged in their Common Core units during whole group. Or it may be something that we know they still need much more skill practice on because they haven't had a chance to master some of those activities. We can also differentiate for different levels of children during this time. So we really feel like this is one of those times when teachers really can do what we ask them to do in the classroom. Enrichment would be one of those for our fast Freddies that we like to call them, the kids that really are ahead of the game. We can enrich them during this time. Some of us talked about collaboration and learning from others and having that time where we can actively be engaged with others. So those would be at least some of the reasons we would want to have this small group math time.
One thing that Renee and I didn't model for you is usually what you see in your elementary classrooms or middle school classrooms that are doing stations is the teacher isn't really up facilitating. That's her opportunity or his opportunity to have that teacher pullback station. Opportunity to meet with Josh and Mike, who did not get what we were doing whole group, or I know have a deficit in XYZ. Sorry, I still have to put in. Okay. You know, so that they can spend a little extra time with me, that one-on-one, which is not really one-on-one because there's 2 or 3 of them sitting there, but that smaller group, so that, you know, the teacher is not up walking the room typically during this time. That's her opportunity to meet those two needs. You know, they're not in special education, they're not in my tier 3 group where they're getting pulled out and getting Title I services, but they still have needs that they need a little additional time with me helping them. And so, you know, that's one piece we didn't get a model. One of the purposes is so that I can extend that learning for them and that direct instruction time.
So as we started to put this together with teachers and for teachers, we started with the end in mind, and we ask teachers to do that all the time as they prepare things for their small group time. What is it you want kids to be able to do at the end of the day? After they've experienced this learning opportunity, what do you expect for them to be able to do? The other thing is, Common Core is asking us to help children become independent learners and be in charge of their own learning. And, okay, I say this to teachers all the time, so I'll say it to you guys too. We bring them to our educational system, and basically we don't teach them to be independent. We actually train their bladders to go to the bathroom at the same time every day. So, and we take them there, and we don't let them be independent. So this is one 30-minute period out of the day where children can be in charge of their own learning. That takes a system in place, a management system that teachers have to teach to children and kids have to learn. But I'm here to tell you, we have this going on in kindergarten classrooms. 5-year-olds can learn how to do this and be in charge of their own learning. So it just takes a teacher who's willing to jump in and say, this is how I'm going to do business, and this is my expectations for kids, and then teach that to kids. It takes some intentional organization. It takes having your activities laid out. It takes having them ready to go for children. It takes having manipulatives when they're necessary. It takes having an accountability piece, because like Tammy said, if I'm at the teacher table working intently with someone who needs my additional help, I need to know that the troublemaker group over here really is working on the activity at this table. Because what we have seen, I'll let Tammy tell the story of her 6th grade class that she walked into, but some kids are really good at playing the game if there's no piece of accountability. So
the building I do some consulting in is a 4-6 building, and I go in once a month and watch their teachers teach math and provide them feedback. And I go in during small group time, and there's a group of 6th grade boys sitting at a table with a game in the middle of the table, and it involved you rolled a dice, you drew a card, the card had a problem on it, you supposedly did the problem. If you got it right, you know, you got to move however many spaces, or, you know, whatever the game involved. So I'm watching these 4 boys roll their dice, pick up their card, hold it for the appropriate amount of time, put their card down, move their little man, next guy rolls his dice. I mean, they looked like they were from a seated position at a teacher table, the most on-task group ever. All they were doing was rolling a dice. We're not even sure if they were doing one-to-one correspondence with the dice and the number of counts that they were moving, you know, their man, because they had figured out how to play the game. You know, the game of small group stations. As long as we aren't having too good of a time over here, she's not going to say anything to us. There was no accountability for their learning. There was no at all piece of accountability. So that student accountability piece, that's one of the reasons we talked about that. No, we don't want another worksheet. That isn't what we want. But something so that when those students walk away from that center, how do you know they met your objective? So when the structure we're talking about is we're encouraging teachers to not set timers. When Josh goes to the center, completes the task, he gets up, he leaves, he goes to another open spot. That center, maybe he knows his math facts really well, and so really this was not a challenge for him, it was just a reinforcement. But he goes over there, and that center is about geometry and spatial reasoning, and Josh is a processor, and that's just, it takes him a little bit longer at that station. When he's finished, he gets up and he goes to another place. And Mike was slow here, slow there, slow, you know, I mean, you just, sorry.
she finds one to pick on every time, you know, I'm telling you.
So this allows a student to process at their own speed. Now remember, if Mike is that kid, Mike's also probably at my teacher table 3 times a week, because, you know, he's not getting to necessarily go to all, because I know he needs a lot of assistance. Josh is able to be stretched independently and not, he only comes to my teacher table once.
So as we started to develop these products, these cards that are in front of you, and as teachers choose additional materials for their stations, what we encourage them to do is this list of things. Make sure that they're aligned to your grade level's Common Core standards. And oftentimes we've had to talk about that with teachers when we go in. That we see number sizes that are not appropriate, or activities that are probably not appropriate depending on the time of year. We ask them to keep in mind those 8 standards for mathematical practice all the time. We don't do anything that we don't ask them to think about that. We ask them to think about having their stations develop conceptual understanding. Those of you that were over here have been to the flip-flop integer station, and there was a manipulative there. We ask you to show us a pictorial representation because we want it to be conceptual understanding, not just this rote procedure that you learned a long time ago about how to add integers.
And it still doesn't make sense to you why a negative number times a negative number is a positive number. But because your teacher told you that rule, and you know, you are rule followers in the room, so you
except for Steve. Sorry.
So you just did it, and you know, that's still, and that's not a bad thing if that still doesn't make sense to you. I'm just saying, you know, we were taught very much to follow the rules, don't ask why. When you divide fractions, you change it to multiplication, and you take the reciprocal of the second number, and you just multiply. Well, actually, you don't. It's still a division problem, and there's lots that go in behind that, but that was the rule your teacher told you, my teacher told her, and that's how we do it. So we're trying to get to that conceptual understanding level, just not rule following.
But we also have stations where we are trying to build fluency. That fact knowledge that we know is important. Although we're not doing it in the same way that probably was done to many of us in those timed math drills. So we're looking to try to build all of those things that Common Core is asking us to do as we put together materials and as we work with teachers to put together additional materials of their own.
And we didn't have any out today, but you know, we also, this is a huge piece. We knew we were only giving you 3 minutes a station, and sometimes it's hard to do that piece, but that piece is definitely a part that you didn't get to see.
So we're going to
go back
to,
she
wants me
I want you to go back to that relational thinking because I had several people ask me about it.
Okay, so if you haven't been here, you are getting some pre-teaching.
Okay. Can you do that problem, tell me if it's true or false, without actually putting 1, 2, 7, 9, 2, 1, drawing a line, adding up your ones column? Can you do that problem, tell me true or false, without doing that actual calculation? Okay, and how did you do that?
Numbers are just different. 127 is 2 less than 129. 919 is 2 less than 921.
Typically, when we do this with teachers, they're getting out and they're lining stuff up and not even looking that way because, like, I helped a couple of tables that went through this station. They're like, we were taught to just do the math. But do we always have to go all the way through the math? No, I can look at that and tell if it's true or false because I'm looking at the relationships the numbers have. And so looking at relationships and connections.
And so when we talk about relational thinking, we're talking about thinking mathematically, which is a piece of research from the same people that did the CGI research, if you're familiar with CGI. And so we've taken what information we've learned from that material and created cards to help kids get there too. Now, is that going to work on every problem? Would you be able to say true or false for every problem? No, we've chosen those numbers strategically so that you could actually think about them relationally rather than have to do computation. Obviously, there's going to be there will be times when children have to compute, but the relational thinking station starts with some very, very, very simple basic problems, not 3 digits at all, 1-digit numbers, and works all the way up into multiplication, which is what some of you experienced with those cards. Before we have you do one more activity, what questions do you have for us at this point? Steve.
Renee, I was talking to a math teacher, not from a school in here, last week that said, by God, the kids just have to suck it up and remember those formulas But you guys talk about kids thinking mathematically. How do we get that K through 12 so that we get past that rote memorization? Because our kids have had a lot of training memorizing stuff.
It starts early. We have to start early. It doesn't let the high school people off the hook. The expectation is there for them as well. But it does have to start early. We have to start with our youngest learners and work up. Obviously, we have to start with some of them midstream because some of them have already been proceduralized, and they will. I mean, I'll give one quick example. I was in a 6th grade classroom a couple of years ago when we were doing our MSP grant and had observations going on regularly. And I walked into a 6th grade classroom the first year of the grant, and her children had learned the long division algorithm. I mean, they all knew how to do long division, the good old-fashioned way, just like we learned it. And what happened was they could all get the right answer, but she asked a very smart question. She said to them, "What are you doing? Why are you doing those steps?" And the answer came back because our 5th grade teacher, name left out here, told us to do that. Okay? So she said, "So what are you doing when you're dividing?" Crickets. You could have heard crickets. No answer. Not one of those 6th graders said, "We're taking 256 things and breaking it up into 5 groups." Not one of them understood what division was. Kids, research tells us that kids that memorize those multiplication facts oftentimes can't reverse it. They don't know that there's a correlation between that and division if all we're doing is memorizing. So guess what that teacher, very smart teacher, did? She got out the base 10 blocks and she said, "Build this for me." And they built 256. And she said, "Now break it up into 5 equal groups." That's what you're doing. And then they eventually connected that to that procedure that all of those kids were very proficient with. So sometimes we have to back them up.
I have one last question. I come in and watch you do this with teachers. The engagement is off the charts. The engagement here today was off the charts. Do you see that with kids?
Yes.
When kids are doing it?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yes,
we do. And to answer your other question too, Steve, I think we also have to take the fear out for teachers because remember, just like we said, all of you in the room were taught very procedurally.
So were they.
So were they. And so when I ask a teacher, how come we multiply when we're dividing fractions, you want to talk about run for the bathroom. I mean, there's like, can we get out of the room fast enough because I don't want anyone to know I can't show them why that works or how that works or, you know, so I think part of it is we have to help get that fear out because they were taught very procedurally, they weren't made connections with, and let's be honest, when we're talking about the conceptual learning at the K-6, they aren't math majors. I mean, you know, they love reading and, I mean, you know, I'm not saying that you don't have elementary teachers that love math, but they do math because that's a part of their job. Oftentimes is what they will tell us. You know, I didn't love it as a kid either because it was taught very procedurally to me, you know, and so us backing them up so they can draw pictures because a lot of them have a hard time. They know the rules, but they don't really know why those rules work. And so that's the other piece that we are trying to do with teachers is it's okay to look at, it's okay to learn that and that conceptual understanding for them as well.
And I want to chime in just for a second, and then we're going to answer your question. For the last 8 years, that has been my greatest privilege, is to work so much with elementary people who literally, I take a poll of the audience almost every time I do any kind of math workshop. And I say, okay, I take you back to your elementary school experience, your middle school experience, your high school experience with math. I want this. I want this for those of you that your instantaneous thought was, thumbs up, it was great. Here, kind of, sort of. And here, it was awful. And honestly, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of this. And I don't I don't blame that on anybody, and I tell teachers, we're not blaming that on anybody, because I believe teachers have done the best job they knew to do. With what they knew about teaching math, they've done the best job they knew to do. But we have some wonderful research out there now that tells us some better stuff. And so that's been my privilege for 8 years to be able to get to do with your teachers, is to help them start to have those light bulb moments that we want for kids, where they go, oh my gosh, Renee, this is the first time I understood why that worked. And I'm going, absolutely. And now we just need to have a whole lot more of those moments for teachers. Now,
I'm wondering how this sort of strategies getting into our prep program. Have there been some conversations there? Is this happening?
it is in some places. I will tell you that, again, I poll the audience oftentimes about how many of you have heard of CGI. And every once in a while, I say, where did you go to school? CGI? Cognitively guided instruction. Thank you very much, Mr. Plant in the audience. It's a wonderful program. If you don't know about it, please talk to me later. But oftentimes I'll get one little hand snaking up in the air. Different areas of the country, we work with one district that really has to go far afield to get their teachers, and if they're going up into Wisconsin and Minnesota, oftentimes their teachers have had it. We have Emporia State is doing quite a bit of conceptual understanding. There's a few of the KCAC schools. So little by little, but not fast enough for me. For me with the 2-year-old granddaughter.
A quick comment on CGI. We did some training with our staff last year on it. We had visitors for iPads 2 weeks later, and I was walking the superintendent around to a classroom, and it was just interesting because I saw one of our teachers who I think is pretty, she doesn't get easily excited about anything, and she started explaining to this superintendent who was with me what they were doing and why they were doing it and how it was impacting learning. And she was excited about it, and the kids were engaged, and it was just interesting to see. So just to piggyback on your comment, I don't know a lot about it, but when I see some of our teachers getting as excited about it as they are, and kids having to think, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and if you want to talk to me about it, reserve about 30 minutes, because I get real excited about it too. I'm kidding. I can shorten it up.
So on your tables, Tamara and Steve have passed out for you. We are letting you take home a place value 3, which that is the upper elementary grade levels as far as we have place value 1, 2, 3. Place value 3 is for that 4, 6 because it uses the vocabulary of multiples, factors, prime, composite. Those are the vocabulary is at that level. So you have those, and in every deck of cards that Renee and I have out, there's a card that looks like this, and it's just a place where teachers can go online and download this direction sheet for activities of how they might use it in their classroom, what they might use as student accountability, some things to think about. Sometimes we put common misconceptions on there or whatever is appropriate to that deck. So you have a deck that you can go share with someone, and the take-home sheet. Renee is now passing out all of the decks that we have out. We started making decks because we had teachers crying for, literally going, we don't know what to put in our centers. You know, there's all this stuff out on Teachers Pay Teachers, and I'm not saying that's bad stuff. There's some very good stuff out there. But, you know, they're like, how do we know? How do we decide? Will you help us? And so that's where all of our decks have been built from, is teachers coming to us and saying, you know, we can't find anything good around XYZ. What ideas do you guys have? And that's kind of where we get our inspiration to keep building from is them in the field. So that's just one sample deck that you can look at, and every deck's different. And
so obviously when we were putting together your activity today, we just pulled 3 or 4 cards. So the deck can be used over and over again, and different cards can be pulled out depending on which skill level children should be able to do on their own. So they get progressively more difficult as the card numbers increase in the deck.
You know, and our biggest thing that we point out, Renee and I are both very mathematical people. We are very different mathematical people, and even us, we process at different speeds through different things. And here's the one opportunity for those kids to be able to process at their speed and move when they're ready to move when they're finished learning. And, you know, if Renee and I were out doing this, I might be fast here and I might be slow there, and her the opposite. This allows kids to have that independent work time that they need to move.
Okay, so we're going to make you move one more time. And this time, we're just going to ask you to do the first card at your table. And as soon as you've completed one, we want you to stand up. And we just want to see if that were the task, if the task was only to do one card, would we all process at the same pace? So if you will move to your final table. Yeah. Here, I'll be your Here's the deal. I thought she was dissing Mike Cook the whole time. I thought that was who she was giving it to.
Renee, I know who signs the check.
I thought it was Mike Cook she was dissing the whole time. What is this table doing? The troublemaker. Are they done already? Are you done already? Okay, they're done already. Sit down and do your job. They already did it. Did you already do it? You're good. Just do one card. Do one card each, or whatever the task says. What's your task say? Each of you takes
Do one card and stand up.
Stand up. One card. Do one card and stand up. Okay. You can. Okay, we're going to ask you to pause and look around. Have we all processed at the same pace? No. Some of you would be ready to move. Some of you would still be working, and that's the whole point of this. Without a timer, you work at your own pace till the task is done. We have to pause. They've told us our time is up, and your phone call is coming. So thank you guys for participating. We appreciate it.
Hey, quickly, as you're sitting, thank you. As you're sitting down, what was your energy level in this activity? Energy level in this activity. One? Any ones? Bill said, oh, you're a 6. Bill was a genius. How about 5? Saw it as an opportunity.
Sorry, Brad.
Yeah, we keep striving for 5. Good job, ladies. Outstanding. Did you use any cognitive processes? How was your cognition?
I really know where I stand now.
When
was that? Oh, bosses were calling me.
Thank you. This is Brad.
Hello. Let's take a 10-minute break and we'll be back with Brad.
multiplication table, division table.
One more time like that.
Two.
Here's one I showed up. There's your original one. You started out with two.
I would have been much better. And I have a son that really would have. Yeah, yeah, that's the problem. Yeah,
We're doing playground stuff right now, trying to get it done. No, but it's different.
I'll never forget when I got that call.
that was nice.
So what I
Even superintendents want to do
and then we can find which really paid well.
Yes.
I said, why don't we?
He told us.
That's what happened.
Very well.
That's always. We had one. I didn't know. Pretty small part. And it was top of it.
Very
Circular. Last
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
We had a hall.
If y'all take your seats. Brad got tied up, so we're kind of on hold, and we have no clue. He could come on in a minute, and it could be longer. But we've had the question asked of us, so we thought we'd share. And we want to go around. What is it right now that you're focused? What are you learning right now? What are you doing right now? You as a superintendent. So I'll ask for a volunteer to get started, but we'll try to go around to everybody. What's your focus right now?
SO66.
Okay, anyone else?
Forms and reports.
SO66. There's some things you don't miss when you're no longer in the district. What else? Josh, you had a great day the other day. What are you kind of focused on?
Project-based learning.
Learning by doing?
Learning by doing. Learning's a process, not an event. That's kind of focus.
Yeah.
Learning is a process, not an event.
And again, they had a great staff development day the other day. I was thrilled and impressed. It was a lot of fun to be there. Bob, what are you focused on?
He was down there.
Better instruction? Be more specific. What are you really digging into? What's top of mind today?
Probably a higher level thinking and different types of activities rather than sitting at.
Yeah, a lot of that cognitive process stuff. What are we prompting the kids to think? Bill?
Steve, I would piggyback on what Bob said. Same topic, instruction, and getting teachers to identify what do you want kids to know, kind of like what Renee said, what do you want kids to know from the activity you're having them do? And it stops them in their tracks sometimes when you ask them that, because they just think they haven't really thought about that or had to think about that very often. So it really is again, one of those little shifts in the instructional piece, but it really did cause teachers to, and we do walkthroughs to kind of point to that and say, what do you want kids to know when you, as a result of doing this activity? It's not always very evident.
Hey, I gave all of you another card today. Please feel free to take as many as you want, but we're always going to offer that. But there's a statement on the back of the card, on the back side of the cognitive processes. It says, when someone says a student needs to know something, ask them the question in order to do what? That to do what becomes their activity, the experience that you give them. And if you can't answer that question, you probably better be figuring it out. In order to do what? That really, really makes a difference. What else? Bob, what's going on out of Kinsley?
I think we're trying to move that way, at least administratively. Everybody's trying to figure out ways to get kids engaged more than just sit and get. I think we struggle because we've got an older teaching population who are, let's not say set in their ways, but it's harder for them to change. Change for them is just as hard as it is for me.
Just out of curiosity, is it any easier with your administrators, the rest of your leadership team? Is that a challenge?
Is what a challenge?
Getting them to think differently, a different kind of instruction, different learning experiences? Or are they just in that trying to figure it out stage 2? Staff too. Yeah.
Have the time to do it.
Yeah. 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 And boy, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you guys are acutely aware of the difference in this meeting from what they used to be. That every time we're trying to do a really engaging learning experience, boy, does that help. If you can do that with your staff, that's what Josh did with his the other day with everybody, and it was really good. Mike, other than counting down the number of board meetings left, what's front of your mind?
Well, we had a new reading adoption we adopted, and it has a lot to do with my teachers. Maybe they say they don't understand exactly how they're supposed to use our new reading adoption. So we had a specialist come in when school started to do in-service training from the company, and they're still some of them are still fretting about it. So probably try to have somebody come in again around Christmas and do a follow-up.
That's the front of your brain right now.
Yeah. The other is, you joked, but my board is concerned about finding a replacement, so I'm trying to help with that too.
Greg, new superintendent, how's it going?
Well, I'm learning a lot. The thing that's been the biggest challenge for me is that I came from, I taught in Derby. I was a principal in Augusta, larger districts.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Great Bend, so I kind of went back to near where I grew up there in Central Plains. But I don't want to say the lack of urgency or just, maybe I feel like we're 5 years behind where we need to be. And how do you manage to get 5 years made up in 3 months? You don't. You just got to kind of take bite-sized bites and try to head the direction we're together. So that's been my challenge.
Yeah. John, what's going on in Gossel? What are you focused on?
Well, trying to wrap up the bond project right now. That's the fun part you've seen. So, and probably that's the main part right now.
Yeah. Front and center there. Who else? Steve, what do you got going on in Hillsborough?
Well, I met with 3 mothers yesterday that our elementary playground is a disaster and we need a new one. So we are trying to figure out a way to make that happen. So we're talking about playgrounds and farms, school farm projects.
Cool.
The 2 aren't necessarily related.
Yeah.
But the 2 involve a lot of attention and nurturing and that along. And frankly, in my mind, we're still facing last year's 50 kid drop in 1 year, and so our loss of enrollment coupled with the state's lack of interest in public education is where my mind is a lot.
Where's your energy level?
Thank you, James.
It only gets lower when I'm around Dale Dennis. It drops even further. But,
energy attracts like it.
So that's where we're at. But the cool part about it is, I think this year, because of our focus on, Josh said it earlier, our number one, we always talk about one thing each year. What's the one thing we're going to be about this year? And this year is project-based learning by doing. And it's our second year of doing, of really focusing on that and not shaking the tree too much for our teachers. We shook their world each of the last 4 years with changing schedules, entering new classes. And now they've had 2 years under the belt with these new courses that we've unveiled, particularly for middle and high school. And I was in the high school building for a half a day yesterday, just touring classrooms and talking to kids and teachers. They are so much more relaxed. The learning is happening just almost in spite of anything we try to do to stop it. It's just happening, which is really cool, and it's natural, and the teachers are very, very upbeat. I think the teachers are, the morale is high, the teachers are upbeat, they like what's happening in our schools.
High energy.
So that changed. In fact, I went there because of a previous issue I had that wasn't related to any of that. I said, I got to get out in schools and classrooms and see kids. My energy level began to rise.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend doing that.
Many of you know a superintendent that's no longer with us that I worked for years ago, Terry Terrell. And when Terry would have those visits from parents, he would always say, working together to push back the frontiers of ignorance. James, you're on a roll. What do you get?
I'm on a roll.
Well, you got right on Mike's energy level.
We're in year 2 of mandatory PBLs, and that's worked out really well for us. In fact, it was kind of cool to hear comments from Tamara, who is in our district, doing some Krell training for our newly hired staff members. They were commenting to her about what was going on with PBLs in our district. So that was good.
We got Brad on.
We're good to go.
I don't know why that number wouldn't work. Okay. How's everybody doing there? I can hear you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. So you tell me the first topic, and I'll get rolling.
Performance and efficiency disciplinary assessment.
Okay, I just heard 2 things.
Take them in whichever order.
Okay, let me just walk through what's going on with the efficiency. What they're trying to do is take all the recommendations that have been presented to the commission or the legislature over the last few years. They just made a bulleted list, and then they started walking through them. And here's the ones that, and then once they have a compiled list, then they, as a group, will take action on whether or not they want the whole list or whether it's too exhaustive and they want to weed some of them out. But here's the things that they approved that they wanted to consider recommending, but doesn't mean that they will yet. The first one is they wanted the state board to establish measurable standards around the rows capacities. And if you think about it, you know, we have content standards like math, English language arts. We have model standards that aren't required, but they're out there around some of the fine arts and PE, things like that. But we've never had a set of standards that would say, here's what every kid needs to know and be able to do to be college and career ready or to meet the Rose standards. So that was one recommendation, that the state board create a set of measurable standards to determine whether districts are meeting the goal of providing students the capacities as outlined in the road standards. So that was one. Another one, they want to request that the legislature continue to fully fund basically Senate Bill 155. Because as we continue to have more kids graduate high school with industry recognized certifications, that's going to keep driving up the cost of Senate Bill 155 because you get reimbursed $1,000, they pay for the transportation, the tuition, all that. So one of the requests that they wanted to move on was to recommend fully funding that initiative. Now I'm going to keep going through this list, and if you have questions on any of them, someone make a noise that's audible. They also wanted to request that there be a study about the whole open-ended obligation to the state around bond and interest. They want a group to study that, because currently that's a demand transfer. So as districts continue to pass bond issues, and in those districts that get state aid, the cost of that demand transfer goes up. So they want to have some kind of a study about that whole issue. They did say, though, that whatever the recommendation would be, it would only apply to districts that receive state aid for bond and interest. So, but that's another study. You're going to see a pattern of study through this. They also want to recommend that this not be a state requirement, but that districts have long-term strategic plans for operations, capital costs, but that's already something that is built into the rubrics around the new accreditation model. As far as financial planning and good management is to be modeling, you have a long-term strategic plan. So they talked about that a little bit. Not being a requirement, but being a recommendation. And I would imagine those superintendents in that room, their districts have some type of a long-term strategic plan. If you don't, the recommendation is you ought to have one because it helps you operate more efficiently. This one, they determined that the state had already addressed broadening the definition of allowable purchases in your capital outlay fund or expenses. And they said, well, that seems like that was already addressed last session. There was support for a 2-year funding cycle. That way, when the legislature does their budget for education, they do a 2-year funding plan. There was a recommendation of changing the budget to where you collapse all the funds into the general fund. So you wouldn't have, for example, an at-risk fund, a 4-year-old at-risk, a bilingual, virtual, a VOCED fund. All of those funds would just be collapsed into one general fund. You'd have to create new line items so you could still, and the whole thing was, would it be as transparent? Nope. Could it be more efficient because schools have to make fewer transfers? Yes. So they wanted to look at that. Capital outlay and bond and interest would still have to be separate, and probably some other funds, but in some of the superintendents in there that have been around long enough, you might remember that, I don't know, it's probably 10 years ago, there used to be a transportation fund. And and you'd transfer the money over there. For some reason, I don't know why, they eliminated that fund, and now all your transportation expenses are embedded in your general fund. Doesn't make it quite as transparent, but it might save you from making, so that was something they looked at. They rejected a proposal to develop standards on how much cash carryover you should be allowed to have in the general fund. Because what they're saying is, if you collapse everything into the general fund, then allow you to carry over cash in the general fund, the group did, though, reject not to have any standard set on how it is allowable. And they actually took a vote on that one, said, nope, we don't want to develop standards around that because every district's different. They tentatively, and they've kind of tabled this, to have a study on the cost of developing a statewide accounting system. Because we reported to them that out of the 286 school districts, about 270 of them already use one of two vendors. There's Maps and there's Data Team, and so they wanted to study that, or they wanted to look into that before they recommended any kind of study on that.
Hey, Craig, how do they?
You want me to go get Craig?
Brad, I'm sorry. This is Regier. I don't know the two of you.
That's all right.
How do they? I mean, what do they want to do with that? What's their goal there? There's a lot of different opinions. I know they say efficiency, but what's the point of that?
Well, okay. Let me just tell you some comment. They think it might help you be more efficient if you all did the same thing. But they also say it could help efficiencies across the state from other people that are interested in your looking at your data if there was just one place to go and get it. So is it efficient to you, or is it efficient to people that want to know your information?
Okay. Now I got it.
So, I mean, in the reason that they tabled it was, if to do that, you know, it costs the state $40 million to develop a state accounting system, and the question is, did it help the state become more efficient? So they'd want to look at that. So the real question is, would that help you be more efficient? Well, that's different than, would it help people that want, and maybe the legislature, patrons, you know, people that want to use all of your information, would it help that process be more efficient? So that's why they tabled it, because they're not quite sure efficient to who and at what cost. So another thing they did is, you know, there were some recommendations from other groups in the past about negotiations and all that, and they just said, you know what, there's already efforts underway between KASB, KNEA, USA, KSSA, trying to work on agreements to help move through that. So they came out that maybe they just want to endorse the efforts that are already underway. Let the people involved try and work it out. They agreed that there should be no review of teacher tenure because that was eliminated last session. Now this is one that was had a lot of talk about it, and that was they recommended a study about district level administrative cooperation. And they weren't talking about what we immediately refer to as administrators. They were talking about administrative functions that districts have around certain business functions, transportation, food service, maintenance. Are there things that schools could do to save money by cooperating with other districts around certain administrative, like payroll? So they wanted to study around that. A lot of what already goes on through, ESSDACK. There's things that ESSDACK does around, asbestos management, those types of administrative functions. It wasn't necessarily about sharing principals and superintendents and clerks and stuff. So anyway, there was a recommended that be a study around that. Another part of the recommendation as part of that study is how do you continue to enhance incentives for district cooperations that already goes on through service providers. They encouraged that local school boards to have training in appropriate financial management and other board responsibilities, which is also part of, under the new accreditation model, when you look at the column on leadership to be modeling, there are certain characteristics that your school board does. And I think that's kind of where that came from. It's not mandated, but they encourage that local boards continue to get professional development. They did determine that the state board already requires university-level finance, accounting, and budget management courses in order for you to get your superintendency license. So that was one thing that was a recommendation from one group, and then we shared with them, you already have to have that in order to get your license. Plus, they applauded the efforts of associations and groups for the continued, like the budget workshops, bringing boards in and doing that stuff. So here's one, and is Ken in the room? Willard?
No.
Okay, he was there the first day, but he wasn't there the second day when this came up. And they recommended, and they took a vote, and it was a 6-3 vote, to repeal this policy goal of spending 65% of your funds on instruction. There were a few of them that still wanted that in statute, but the majority on a 6-3 vote voted that they want that repealed because it's meaningless. And I think even the efficiency commission that Ken was on even recommended that not be, or I don't know if they said to remove it, but there was no research behind the 65%. So this group voted that they wanted the efficiency commission to recommend that be repealed out of statute, removed. They also rejected the idea of attempting to redefine spending on instruction around that 65% because we already have to report it by a certain definition to the federal government. That's a federal definition. So they rejected any idea of trying to redefine instruction. Basically, let's quit talking about that. A few more things. They recommended the creation of a task force to develop guidelines that would be used in district efficiency audits that's conducted by legislative post audits. And that those guidelines be based more on best practice than just how could you save money when it may be more efficient but not more effective. Let's see. They recommended an analysis of the actual additional cost of new requirements. But basically this was saying they're looking at if you're going to submit any kind of a bill or anything with education, you need to be able to put in there what are the benefits, the actual costs, and the return on investment. And they're just saying that there ought to be an analysis done on that. They recommended that school districts should submit to us, the U.S. Department of Education, a list of mandates that may be unproven or disconnected to performance. Which actually we would really like that because pretty much everything that's required is required by a statute. So they would want you to recommend to us the things that you're required to do that are unproven or disconnected to performance. And that really came kind of from a group saying, most of the things that schools are required to do are required because of legislative action. So let's get a list of the ones that aren't beneficial. I'll give you an example. We have some school districts, to go to the 33% LOB, they have to do a mail ballot. It can't be at a regular election where people are already coming to the polls to vote. They have to pay for a mail ballot. In one of the districts there, it's going to cost them over $200,000 to do a mail ballot when they could have it on a ballot for free. So, because there's already an election coming up. So that's just one recommendation. They also recommended that the legislative post-audit do an efficiency audit of the State Department. And that's something that we've actually talked about because it's hard to find the time to do it, but to have someone come in and look at what are all the things that that this agency requires of you that is no longer applicable, or there's no law or anything that requires it, so we can start taking things off the to-do list. And sometimes that is a huge study to go back through 20, 30 years of everything. Yeah, come in, review everything we do, and find out if it's required by statute, then is it something to get rid of. That's about it. There was one they talked a lot about, or a little bit about the Innovative Districts Law and what are things that they could do to help. But then they finally said, you know what? But that's what the Coalition of Innovative Districts Board. So they didn't want to kind of get into their business. So with that, what questions do you have on any of those? Or thoughts or suggestions?
Brad, this is Bill. I've counted 2, 3, 4 different studies that have been outlined here. Who's going to do those studies? Did they decide how that was going to happen? Is that you guys, or is that who's going to do those and or get them paid for?
They haven't even got to that point yet, Bill. And actually, Bev Mortimer said, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. We're just going through ones that we think have some, maybe some value. But when we get done with this, we need to lay the whole thing out and then go through and say, you know, because I can't recommend moving forward a recommendation that has 7 different studies in it. So they're just going through all the things that have been recommended in the past by different groups and saying, do we agree, disagree? And then when the whole list is done, then I think they're going to look at it at its entirety, including if we do recommend a study, who's going to do the study and how much is it going to cost. So that, I mean, right now they're just kind of weeding through things that have already been recommended in the past. The, you know, part of it, you know, they were getting hung up on, a few of them wanted to keep talking about cash balances. Now, Mike, how much time do I have? I want to value your time. I mean, do I need to shut up in 2 minutes? 2 minutes or 10? Okay. Well, a few of them wanted to talk about cash balances again, and one of the comments was, well, for example, cash balances have gone up in the at-risk fund every year for the last 4 years, and the only reason cash balances could go up in the at-risk fund is it's up that they're not spending their at-risk money we're sending them. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. If a school district, based on free lunch kids, if we send them $100,000, we audit them and make sure at a minimum you have to spend $100,000, period. The only way that you can increase your balance in the at-risk fund if you're transferring additional general fund money to support those programs. And as an example, last year, schools spent $21 million more in that fund than what we sent them. So, I mean, there's a lot of confusion about cash balances. And so, opening my mouth, I then had, oh, Brad, could you give a presentation Friday morning on cash balances? I was like, problem with opening your mouth. But what I shared with them is, our job as a State Department is to make sure you're compliant with statute. And if you get $100,000, you got to spend $100,000. But I also shared with them, statute says you can use at-risk funds, and also you can use it in the 4-year-old at-risk, the K-12 at-risk, the bilingual, and your vocational. And I said in those 4 funds alone, they spent $108 million more than what we sent them. And I explained to them how they what the purpose of transfers, because all that money flows into the general fund, and you transfer it to those funds for transparency purposes. But I also told them, yeah, the balances have been going up, because remember, the day before you recommended that they all have a long-term strategic plan, they're not budgeting to get by the next 3 months. They're budgeting based on their long-term strategic plan. And this year, at-risk balances dropped for the first year by $27 million, or excuse me, by $5 million. Overall, your balances statewide dropped, if you exclude bond and interest, dropped $57 million. So I think it was good to be able to walk the group through. The reason you build balances is to support a long-term strategic plan. It's not about how much should they have to carry them for the next 3 months or 4 months. It's how are they planning for the next 3, 4, 5 years. So I think it was a good conversation, but it actually got a few of them to quit talking about cash balances, but it helped the other ones understand. So any other questions about that? And then I can visit about state assessment model if you want.
Got one more. I think cash balances, some of us that had testified had to send in on that Friday, last Friday, or it was Thursday night actually, information about how we were using our cash balances. Did the committee, was that valuable to the committee? Did that help to the commission?
I think it was very valuable. Some of them didn't want to look at the list because they didn't want to see, they didn't want to talk about it. But a lot of them said, well, if you just look at what we asked them, it's very clear that every one of them has a good, thoughtful plan. And the biggest value of those 12 districts quickly submitting is, one, they could quickly tell you what their plans were, and two, they were very good, sound plans. I think the best effects of you submitting that information was it put a quick stop to the conversation about, and that's why they then recommended we are not going to put standards on the amount of appropriate balances that should be carried over. So it had a lot of benefit.
Go ahead with assessments, Brad.
Okay. We sent some information out this week, and there's more that may even be going out. I think it was either yesterday afternoon or today. Basically, let's just talk about math and English language arts. And a lot of you in the room have been part of this conversation. When the U.S. Department of Ed didn't accept our bouquet model, we really went back to the drawing board and said, you know what? Let's reduce the footprint of the state assessment, pull it out of the 11th grade junior year, put it at the sophomore year, and then we can keep our bouquet of all the other things that we want to look at, or you want to look at, or have value of around all the other ways to measure whether a kid is prepared academically, workforce skills, and all those, and that would not be part of accountability. So the recommendation that went to the board was math and English language arts, nothing changes in grades 3 through 8 in high school. We test at the sophomore year. And we basically eliminate giving state assessments at high school at 9th grade and 11th grade. We just do it 1 year. There were I can answer a lot of questions about the advantages. You know, we can now calculate growth at the 1 more year at the student level. We can also now do a growth calculation for a building because they're all taking it at the same grade. But basically, let's reduce the footprint of the state assessment and introduce a college career ready footprint or emphasis on other measures. So the math and English language arts will be at the sophomore. And here's the thing, we started looking at the numbers. For example, English language arts, only 2%, statewide, only 2% of our freshmen were taking the English language arts test. About 10% of the freshmen in math. But if they just hit proficient, you banked it. You really didn't look at, well, but let's test them again to see if they're even better their sophomore year. We were banking scores. Of the juniors, only about 6% of the juniors were taking it, and when we looked at it, the only ones that were really taking it were the ones that hadn't passed it yet already. Because the majority of our kids in Kansas were taking it as a sophomore level because it was geared as an end of sophomore test. So we'll test 1 grade at high school, quit testing in math and English language arts as freshmen and juniors. Now science and history government still haven't changed yet, but the assessment advisory, as we move forward with the assessments in science and history government, then they'll start looking at, well, is history government still appropriate at the senior level? Again, science is a two-part test, so they'll still be looking at that. So questions on that? Really? Well, we'll be I will, and many of you in the room answered the call. I was probably more frustrated with anyone when the U.S. Department of Ed said no. But you know what? I think this model is a lot better than what we submitted a year ago. And the reason we submitted this model to the board to approve a year ago was because we were looking at smarter balance. And when the board said no, we want CETE out of KU to develop it, guess what? We can make it how we want it in Kansas, and we don't have to get 25 other states to agree with us. So I think it's a better model because it still emphasizes and puts a greater focus on what can we really do now in Kansas that senior year aligned to that student's individual plan of study to see if they are on track to be successful post-secondary. And we don't need anybody's permission other than our own. So I think it's a better model than what we submitted to the U.S. Department of Ed a year ago.
Hey, Brad, on the math, the way that test is set up, is it looking like you need to have Algebra 2 as sophomores, geometry as juniors, or how is that going to play out? There's kind of a mixture of what people offer around here.
Well, it is, and even with the old test, you had the same question. What a student needs to know and be able to do at the end of their sophomore year is going to be very strong algebra, and we'll have some geometry in it, which was the same as the old one. I think the advantage of the new assessment, it will still be predominantly algebra with some geometry, but with it being adaptive, you'll be able to tell whether or not, because a lot of kids in Kansas now are taking Algebra 1 at 8th grade, whether they take Algebra 2 or geometry, their freshman, sophomore, whatever schedule they're on, it's what do they need to know and be able to do by the end of their sophomore year, which is what the old assessment was geared around also. We just allowed them to take it again their junior year to try and get them to proficient one more time because of an AYP target. Well, now that that's gone, so it'll be heavy algebra with geometry, but at what level? That's what their CETE is working on. So the majority of your kids are going to have, by the end of their sophomore year, whether they, the question is, what about the kid that takes Algebra 1 their freshman year, geometry, Algebra 2 their sophomore year, and has never had geometry? Well, that's what they're looking at is, what do they need? But that's the same as it was in the past years, too. Trying to align what does a kid need to be on track by the end of their sophomore. And the other thing is, if you get away from AYP targets and you move towards, is the student and the building showing growth in performance over time, it takes that AYP target conversation out of the picture. So, and it focuses more on how are the kids growing in math performance over time. And with it being adaptive, it'll give us even a better, so even the kids that have taken a lot more math, we'll tell them even further, maybe even beyond their sophomore year, hey, you may even be at the junior, senior level. But that's all part of, in a couple years, once we introduce the adaptive part of it. Any other questions about where we're at with that or anything else?
I think they're getting hungry.
I know. You know, the thing about the whole efficiency thing, and the thing I struggle with, and I've brought it up on 2 or 3 occasions, and that is, you know, are we just talking about being efficient at a school district? You know, yeah, okay, can you switch from Pepsi to Coke and save some money and get a scoreboard out of it? Or are we talking about if we invest in things like early childhood or things, how can we be more efficient as a state? How can we save millions of dollars in healthcare and social services and correctional, you know? I hope that becomes part of the conversation, but I'm not sure this group's going to get there.
One question, maybe, Brad. And, you know, we got to hear the chairman at Council of Superintendents, and he was very positive. Of course, he was in the lion's den, maybe. But did you get a sense of the mood of the commission? Maybe direction?
I think the majority of the commission has said if there are things that can be studied that will help us, like a statewide health plan that saves school districts, but, you know, be more efficient. If we can do things like that, we're all for it. But if there are things that are just going to create more work or cause, then, you know, but I think the majority of them are just truly saying we're all up for, you know, people helping us to be more efficient in utilities and the high cost of healthcare and things like that. And we're fully supportive. I believe that's what the majority want. There are some, though, that, you know, still, you know, the whole thing of, well, we're spending this much and we're not getting these results. Those types of conversations haven't come up in the last several, but that doesn't mean they won't again. And I think the chair is trying to work the balance between all of that. Because, yeah. So I think when he talked to Council of Superintendents, I think he was genuine. But I think he's getting a lot of pressures. And he's trying to balance those.
I think that's it, Brad. We appreciate your time.
All right. You guys hang in there. It's holler, let me know if something comes up. I'm having lunch with Andy tomorrow to visit about this, trying to set this, you know, common goal of, you know, all of us involved in education, preschool clear to post-secondary. What is our main goal and what can we do to shift the conversation away from indicators like how you're doing on an assessment, even though it's important, but that not be the driving conversation. The driving conversation being how are we truly getting more high-skilled, you know, so that's where I hope we can move forward and quit arguing about NAEP scores. Jay, you know. So you guys hang in there and let me know if there's anything. Mike, we'll be probably getting a hold of you pretty quick because I think the board would like in a future agenda item, either October or November, to have service centers. And so I'll be calling you or Dale or I will about coming and doing a presentation to help the board understand the role of service centers and what you do for schools and how each service center is a little unique. I'll be in touch.
All right, sounds good, Brad. Let us know.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
gals.
Thank you.
Bye.
Before we break, the health insurance superintendents, if you're involved in that sort of group, if you'd stay, and executive council members. got tasks to take care of. Anything else for the good of the order? Hope you brought your umbrella. It sounds like it might be a little wet out. Thanks.